right, we are back for another Tuesday edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines and our 12th victorious. No, we don't do this on. We've only done this since the playoffs started, ranking started. But listen, we're back. Florida State gigged the Gators on Saturday night. My name is Pat Burnham. I am joined by Osceola publisher Jerry Kutz, managing editor Bob Ferrante, and Florida State legend and Osceola football analyst Mark Salva, who is live
in my own mind
from Memphis, Tennessee, nowhere near Brill Street, but he's been walking with his feet 6 feet off the ground since Florida State beat the Gators 25-14. Obviously, Mark and I got a chance to talk about it Saturday night, late into the evening, as we did our first impressions. But Jerry and Bob, you guys were there. So, Bob, just give me your thoughts on Florida State moving to 12-0 with the win over Florida.
So I've been saying this line all year, so I'm going to use it one more time. Really good football teams, really good coaching staffs figure out how to mask deficiencies and win ball games. Without Jordan Travis, they figured out a way. Down 12-zip, figured out a really good way to kind of rally this. Shout out to Mike Sundquist, who said, maybe it's poetic that Florida State was down 12-0 to finish a 12-0 perfect regular season. A little bit of interesting poetic justice maybe there.
And maybe it was poetic justice that on the same day that they honored Tebow, they only scored 15 points.
Boom.
Wow.
Yeah.
Some symmetry.
Any other numbers we need to be aware about from the game on Saturday?
24 was important.
It was. So was 7-16. So was 16. All right, Jerry. So you were in the stands basically as a member of the FSU band. What was it like up in the stadium on Saturday night? On television copy, sometimes it sounded like an FSU home game. Maybe that's because I tuned the Gator stuff out, but I heard the War Channel a lot.
Yeah, I've got really good friends in the ticket office. This is a shout out to Jack Chatham, the ticket guy and a good friend. I requested tickets late, and he got them for me. And they were in the row right behind the trombones, and it was up close and personal with the marching chiefs, which is good and bad. The good was they're great kids and they're very enthusiastic, and they add a lot to the night. The ones sitting right in front of me all had 1 and 3 painted on their face in tribute to Travis. And of course, I'm sitting there feeling like whatever. And Mark, I look down the aisle, and the guy who has the seats right next to me, Sammy Smith.
Oh, nice.
Mark, of course,
the tailback.
Played with Sammy and played against him in high school. And what a great guy to, enjoy the game with, because he's about as talkative as I am during the game. So we had a couple of eye rolls and a few high fives, and between quarters, assessed it a little bit.
Yeah, but, Sammy's been a regular on the road this year. We ran into him at Wake Forest. Mark and Sammy got to hang out at the I'm going to screw up the name. Triad Seminoles Club, and had a good time with Sammy there. He's getting around these days.
I'm telling you, when they had the bad call on Dent occurred right in front of us, and all Sammy said, and he said it 20 times, is that's bull jive.
Was he talking about the Akeem Dent play?
Yeah, the Akeem Dent play.
I said a lot worse than that on that play.
We all were.
All right. So Mark, you've had 72 hours to kind of digest the win. You've rewatched it. Obviously, it's not a game where I know as Florida State grads, we're really concerned about optics. It's one of those games where you throw that all out the window. It doesn't matter how you look to win that ball game. But just talk about how you thought they played, given all the circumstances. Tate making his first start, the pressure of trying to remain undefeated, which they are now the 5th team to win 11 or 12 regular season games in a row and finish regular season undefeated. And obviously, college football playoff berth still in play.
Yeah. I said it after the game. I never really was all that worried. I was a little bit concerned, obviously, but I wasn't worried. Just the way the game looked to me. I know we didn't get the ball, except for one series in the first quarter, right? And they hit on third downs, and Max Brown threw 2 balls that I'm like, okay, that's not sustainable, right? That one he threw to number 3. He was on his back foot, just kind of slung it out there. It was a beautiful throw and a beautiful catch.
Well, that's when Fisk had the pressure on him. He was falling backwards.
Yeah, just falling backwards and threw that ball. I'm like, okay, I'm going to chalk that up to a little bit of luck. And then he hit that trail route, down a little bit. And like I said, we played him a little vanilla early, and they ended up getting, they converted a lot of third downs. So, but I could tell that their offensive line really couldn't block us, especially if we put numbers in the box. And after just a little bit of movement, and those guys were falling all over themselves. So I know Rose really worried, and sure enough, the defense did catch up to it a little bit. I know Montreal had almost 100, had 100 yard, 107, I think. Yep. I think 50 of it was on that one run at the end of the half. So really, and Etienne was as quick as he is. He had a couple of nice little runs, but nothing really chunky. He had a couple 6, 7, 8 yard runs. So I just didn't think that they were going to be able to produce a lot of points. And this one touchdown they had was a gift, right? They did catch us on the touchdown with a bunch of eye candy. They motioned Ricky across and ran a split zone. So you had 2 guys crossing, and the linebackers heads are on a swivel, and they just kind of opened up. And, they corrected that really quick. And then the safety, right? So the safety, they brought 7, played cover 0, and they brought 3 and 2 gaps. So they had a linebacker over the center, brought the safety, slanted the tackle in, and brought the other linebacker. And I'm like, okay, there's too many gaps. We weren't ready for it. It's probably something I'm assuming something they hadn't really worked on, because obviously it worked great. But on the 4th and 3 to Ja'Kai Douglas, they ran that same blitz, and we crushed it. And, there was no penetration. There was a little bit of penetration, but Tate stood in there confidently, delivered a great ball to Ja'Kai, got that first down on 4th down. And that was really key. So, it just tells me that our coaches are on it. They make adjustments. It's been the story of the whole season. It's been the story of our second halves. So, when things start kind of going sideways in the first half, I don't get worried, right? Because it's been a pattern. So it was
I think it's safe to say that you held your water better than some on the Osceola text thread on Saturday.
Yeah, no kidding. I know. Salty fish is not a good fish.
No,
right?
It's not. No, I think do what?
He's a long-tailed cat.
Yeah.
Right. All that being said, and I knew Tate. We knew Tate has it in him, right? He's got a good arm. He can make throws. He's got to process a little quicker. I think everybody can see that. But, in the whole – hey, Nick.
Hey.
What's up, Nick?
The whole first half we were in, we're behind the chains, right? So that one run, I think Benson's first run in the first series where he lost like 8 yards. That was – tight end gets crushed, and then he tries to bounce it instead of just – trying to maybe cut it up and mitigate your losses there. But, so we're behind the chains immediately. And obviously they are all over the screens. We try to throw a screen or throw the ball sideways a little bit, and they were all over that stuff. So it took a minute to kind of figure out, okay, they've overcoached the screens and the wide receiver screens and and those little short wide throws. They anticipated that was going to be something that Mike was going to go to. So, they got us on that. Got us behind the chains. Second series, same thing. Got us behind the chains, and then the safety, right? So we were never really in a position that the first quarter and a half of the game, for Tate to really get some yards on first down, let Tate sit back there, get him in conflict a little bit, be able to dictate the game a little bit offensively. We were never in position to really do that. So, you know, you got to give them a little credit. You know, they started out hot, and their quarterback started out hot. But when Tate ripped that throw to Jaheim on that seam route, yep. I'm like, okay, now it's on. And sure enough, you know, Tate came through with some really nice throws. I mean, the throw to Johnny on the reviewed catch, that was a great throw. You know, through that hook route, you know, threw some really nice balls. Yep. There were some opportunities he missed. You know, again, he's got to process a little quicker, set his feet a little quicker, get the ball out a little quicker. I'm sure that's stuff they're all working on. I mean, that's, you know, that stuff is not easy to do if it's not your natural kind of deal. But you know, if he starts doing that, and he's going to have to do that this week. I mean, he's going to have to process fast. He's going to have to get the ball out, and they're going to have to help him with some play calls on that deal. But and here's the other thing, and I said it in my game watch review. I mean, their corners really struggled, right? And so they would not turn their head to play the ball. And so I'm like, you got to throw a deep shot once every series of downs, because you're either going to get a nice contested catch or you're going to get a pass interference. And I think in the fourth quarter and late in the third quarter, Mike started doing that. You know, took a few shots, and we got a few pass interferences because they were really handsy, you know, and not really playing the ball and turning their head. So
to your point,
I thought that was. Yeah, go ahead.
There was one of those throws to Johnny Wilson on the Florida State sideline. That was, you know, they could have, you know, I don't think it was a pass interference, but to your point, we did take a look at that. And if you remember, Johnny reached over the DB and got his hands on it, but couldn't control it. But you know, you can get a penalty thrown on that,
right?
Or he catches it.
I mean, and it's a safe throw.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you don't have to, you know, he doesn't have to sit there and read anything. They're going to, you know, they're either playing 3 deep or they're playing, you know, man free or whatever. And he just, you know, take his steps and launch it. So it was really a low risk throw in terms of that. But look, like I said on Friday, and Bob just said it, good teams that win do things that win games. Bad teams do bad things that win games. And that never played out more clearly than Saturday night. And, you know, think about it. No turnovers, no fumbles, no interceptions. That's huge. There's one throw, the throw to Portier on the corner route that kind of landed out of bounds a little bit. Yep. I mean, I said it on my second one. It's like golf, right? Golfers are taught manage your misses. Golf's all about managing your misses. If you're going to miss on the wide side of the green. And that's what that throw was. Because if he throws it inside a little bit too much, that's a pick, right? So if you're going to miss, that's a good place to miss.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's taking care of the ball. I hear Alex talk about it all the time, you know, owning the ball. That was owning the ball. And then the other thing that stuck out to me too about it being a good football team, if you think about it, you know, Keon making the difference on punt returns.
Yep. Right.
He's had a couple big punt returns here in several games that really turned the tide of the game. Miami comes to mind. This game comes to mind. He's had several. I think Wake, right? And what's the one thing that I notice is we don't have blocking penalties, right? How many times do you see on a nice return it being called back because of a push in the back? Or, I mean, that in all of football, in every aspect of football, nothing chafes my butt more than a nice return and some idiot DB or safety or somebody pushing somebody in the back because they never work on blocking. So it just kind of, to me, speaks to how Mike and Papuchis, JP, how they coach the details on special teams, because that's uncommon. I mean, every one of Keon's big returns, I'll probably knock on wood, it'll probably happen this way, but every one of Keon's big returns, there's never a blocking penalty. And that's huge. And there's good blocking. So, you know, I know you guys say they work on special teams a lot, but that right there is the payoff, you know, for how much they work on it.
Well, it's hard to believe that kid didn't return punts until this year. I'll say that. I mean, he has made a huge difference in
you know what's
at least
funny?
2 ball games.
I remember Coach Bowden always said this. He don't care who returns punts. Here's the one thing he wants: somebody can catch it. Yeah, that's the number one thing. You know, you can have the guy that, you know, you can have the biggest, most elusive guy back there, but if he can't catch a punt, that's a problem. And that's, I think I heard Keon say that one time. They just asked, "Can you catch a punt?" Well, yeah, I can catch anything. So they put him back there to catch punts. Oh, by the way, he returns are pretty good too.
So, hey, Mark, let me just say this on that point. Judge
Uh-oh. Is that me or him?
I think I gave him my internet problems.
Yeah, he's frozen up. Hey, I thought another one of the keys to the game, obviously, was Mike's commitment to the run. There was no reason to believe that this team could run the ball going into halftime, and they come out, and Trey comes out with a great second-half performance. We've called him second-half Trey for the last 2 years because he usually gets going in the second half of the season. This game, he got going in the second half of the game. I think he was 14 carries for 94 yards, if I remember correctly, in the second half. And I think they had to be balanced to help Tate out. I don't think they could put this game on his shoulders, although he did produce about 95% of the offense in the first half. I think that goes underlooked. And you guys mentioned a pass interference call that was key on one of the scoring drives on a pass to Johnny Wilson. But I think the fact that they stayed dedicated to the run game in the second half certainly helped this team. And then, of course, we haven't got started on what a great defensive performance it was. But y'all can expound on that. But I do want to ask you all of this. What did you learn about Tate Rodemaker on Saturday night? Because listen, he's played before, but he hadn't started a game this year. And he's starting in the swamp with all those things going on as far as what it means in this season. And, oh, by the way, he wants to look good because he's getting ready to go into he's not thinking about this, but he wants to look good because he's getting ready to go into quarterback competition in the spring. So, I mean, there were a lot of – I think the team and the coaches filter that out, but this was an important game for Tate.
Let me start, and I'll let you guys, elaborate. But Bob and I have seen him for a lot of 4 years now at practice. And as Bob says, there's good Tate and bad Tate. And I've always felt that he has a higher ceiling than his reps have allowed him to achieve. When you're young in this program, you're going to work scout team. You're going to work second team. You're going to get, the lesser offensive linemen to protect you and the receivers. And it's just hard. And you're going against usually the ones. And I wanted to see Tate have success. I mean, I want them all to have success. But I felt like Tate has a high ceiling. But when you're running with the scout team, it's really hard to show that. And when he had that achievement at Louisville, I thought, okay, here we go now. Now we're going to see what he's made of. I think Saturday added to that. He proved to himself in that second half, really, on the 90-yard drive, that I can do this. And I think we may see a little different Tate moving forward. I think the kid has a higher ceiling than a lot of people think. And it comes down to confidence and the confidence of your teammates.
So, I agree that this team got a significant boost out of winning on the road. I think
they did. And if I was to say one thing about him on Saturday, and we've known this, his father has said it, Mike has said it, we've witnessed it. Whether it's good or bad, it's the same Tate Rodemaker.
Yep. And Mike alluded to it post game.
He's kind of unflappable. He does not show emotion. I know he feels it. But anyway, that's what
I did see him pump his fist once after one.
He did have some kind of dance that he did at some point. I don't know if he was like throwing a lasso or whatever. But I think for me, the biggest thing is that Tate was given a hand in which he had every possibility to go into the swamp and just play horribly. This is your first start in the last 2 years. The last start was versus Jacksonville State all the way back in 2021. You're going into an extremely hostile environment with the weight of the entire season on your shoulders, and you don't go in there and lose that game. You don't go there and completely throw the game away, which I feel like Tate 2 years ago would have done that. That's kind of the deer in the headlights Tate that I think a lot of Florida State fans kind of have burned into their memories from the first few times that we've seen him play. The other thing is that you gotta think about how much playing time Tate really has had, and it has not been a lot. So I personally came away impressed with Tate, not in the entire body of work. Obviously, he needs to be a little bit fast with his decision making. I think a lot of people are going to point to the safety as one really big error that he had during that game, and I don't even think that it was his fault. I mean, Florida brought 7 or 8, and there was really nothing that he can do. And I believe that was after a punt that Keon probably should have fielded, but he let go to the 2 or 3 yard line. If I remember correctly.
Listen, Tate can't block him. He can only throw the ball.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, who knows what kind of Tate Rodemaker we're going to get next week,
or next year.
Or next year for that matter.
Well, I believe that you'll get a better Tate Rodemaker for several reasons. And Mark, you can chime in here. Bob, you too. But listen, they won that ball game. To your point, he has not faced a team he has not played a lot of meaningful reps this season. And Florida's defense is, even though as bad as it was coming into this game, was a hell of a lot faster than North Alabama. And the pressure was totally different. Now Mike and Alex know what he's comfortable with in this offense and can design their game plan to complement what he does well and what he does not do well heading into Louisville, which, listen, that's going to be a task. Louisville's got a good defense. Mark, Mark and Bob, whoever wants to take it, do you agree that we'll see a better Tate Rodemaker and a better offense because of what happened on Saturday in Gainesville?
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I think so, yes. I think, to your point, he's thrown 118 college passes. It's not enough for a guy. I mean, you need time in a game. The old cockpit analogy. Do you want to hire a fighter pilot, an airline pilot who's had 1,000+ hours in a plane? He's been there, he's done that. Or do you want to hire a guy who just got his airline flying license to do a job? I mean, to some extent, every college quarterback goes through this. You have to get experience on the field in a game somewhere, somehow. My comment on the good Tate, bad Tate is just we've seen the indecisiveness a lot on the practice field. We've seen the short passes that haven't been maybe, say, the right touch, the right precision through the years. It's gotten better. It really has. But, I mean, there was a clear difference between where Jordan Travis was, where he had progressed through the years. And you looked at Tate sometimes and you said, man, Tate just doesn't look like a fourth-year quarterback yet. And you wondered, is that because of his practice field time, or is it because of the lack of game time that he just hasn't had? But like you guys are saying, now he's getting that game time. Now he's really getting it. I thought Alex Atkins made a great point Monday, too. Was like one of the biggest plays of the game was Tate taking the sack and holding on to the ball and not fumbling it. Like, if they lose 5 extra points there, that's pretty huge. I mean, that could be demoralizing for that team. But him taking the sack, you don't want to see it, but he didn't fumble. So, I mean, his negatives were not glaring enough. I think we can all look at the safety as a negative, but it could have been a lot worse.
Well, I think Alex was actually talking about the safety when they got the free runner. And he, that was almost a Deloach Clemson.
Yeah, the rollout on the short side when the corner came.
Yeah, but on I would let me just say that was, I think, what Alex was talking about. He could have fumbled that ball very easily, but he protected it. Now, the one in the end zone, the only thing he could have done was flung it up and tried to get it out of bounds. And you get an interception at your 10, or it could be a touchdown. And
well, I think that was more awareness of where he was on the field, because if you watch the play, he kept backing up. Once they saw the jailbreak, knowing where he was, you're right. Either chunk it, which could have been at a grounding, or just fall down right where you are, or put your head down and move forward. But he kept backing up, and that's because I think it was like on the 6, maybe somewhere on there, right?
No, it was further back in. I'm pretty sure that was on the 4, closer to the end zone.
Maybe. Either way, I just look. Here's the deal. For me, it's never going to get any tougher than it was Saturday night.
Yep.
That is the most hostile environment he'll ever see, and in a situation where all the emotion that had, from North Alabama to that point, there was just so much going on that week and so much about Jordan Travis and so much, all that stuff that went on that whole week. And then going to Gainesville in that atmosphere and how the game ended up unveiling itself and to be in that spot and then to go 90 was, I mean, I don't know how many guys could have done that. I really don't. I mean, that was crazy.
And he played a hand in it.
Of course he did. He had a major hand in it because you got to remember, he's putting us in and out of plays. I think that's why it's taken him so long. He's got to make a decision, right or wrong, make a decision and go with it, getting us in and out of plays. And, I mean, there was one time we had two receivers out to one side. There's only one DB out there and he waited till they lined up, I'm like, come on, it's not to go, man. You'd like to see more sense of urgency. He's unflappable and he's not very emotional. I wish he'd get a little more sense of urgency. That's the only thing I'd say. And,
he was 3 of 5 on that drive, on that 90-yard drive.
Yeah. And so, I just, he's going to see, it's going to be different this week. Now things are a lot more calm. Things are a lot more settled. There's a clear focus on what needs to get done. Louisville is going to present some challenges. Louisville's defense is a lot like Miami's. They're going to run a lot of bear, a lot of stunts, a lot of movement, a lot of twisting. They got some good, fast players. They're not huge, but they got some fast guys.
The defensive ends are really, really good.
They're great. Yeah, and so there's going to be guys flying around, and again, he's going to have to make quick decisions and go with it. And we're going to have to protect him with play calling. And like I said last week, look, he lines back there. He's got Trey Benson on one side. He's got Johnny Wilson on the other. He's got Jaheim Bell and he's got Keon Coleman, right? I mean, you got some weapons. Just take care of the ball, put it in places where only your guys can get it, and let's get the running game going. And that's the formula to win. Defensive running game has won a lot of games over the course of the history of football. And
let's talk about that defense, because that defense was, after the second drive, they had 160-something yards on their first 2 drives, 23 yards on 5 plays on their third drive, and after that, almost nothing. Bob, talk about the defense's performance. You were there live for it. A whole lot of negative plays, played on the other side of the line of the scrimmage. Akeem Dent might have had his best game of this season. We saw
maybe.
Yeah, Jared Verse was unbelievable. Patrick Payton was unbelievable. Braden Fisk was unbelievable. You go back and look at the stats. Malcolm Ray. Yeah, I mean it was crazy. They allowed FSU would allow -3 yards on Florida's last 4 drives to close out the game.
Hey,
4
Bob,
drives, -3 yards.
You want to throw in your line here? The tradition at Florida Field is when they enter the fourth quarter, they play the song.
No, people found that tweet pretty quickly. The whole "won't back down" Tom Petty tradition that the University of Florida does. It's their eastbound and down, right, where they shut off all the lights and they sing that. Well, Florida did indeed back down quite a bit. They had negative 15 yards in the fourth quarter, and that is backing down and then some. It was, once backing up, you got the truck beeping, letting you know that it's coming full reverse. But no, the defense once things started going, and Bob, you could talk a little bit about it since you and I were both there. That defense really locked itself in.
Yeah, I mean, I think they tied season highs, 6 sacks, 11 tackles for loss. I mean, that's really getting after it, getting in the backfield. I think a lot of fans were sort of curious about something I've been trying to kick around is just how do you measure the production of an edge rusher when the sack is not there, when the TFL or the PBU is not there in Patrick Payton's case. But I mean, really, the numbers were there in all kinds of quantities in that fourth quarter because Pat Payton had the 2 sacks. Jared Verse was all over Max Brown. I mean, almost had that, in addition to the forced fumble, didn't get the recovery, of course, because it just didn't come through. But those guys were after it. Like we said, Braden Fisk, it was all up and down that line. This is going back to Mike Norvell's point back in March that he made with us. And he never used the word Georgia, but I think it was very clear what he was saying. You need to have championship caliber depth on the defensive line if you are going to make noise through the depth of the season and to get anywhere in the college football playoff. What did we see on Saturday night? We saw exactly what that championship level depth can do. And we can debate reps and should guys go a little bit more rest early or late. The coaching staff had a philosophy.
Yeah.
You know, JP said, hey, you get the extra TV timeouts with the national broadcast. You get more 3-and-outs in the second half. You had a lot of rested guys on defense. Okay, that's their philosophy. It worked out great. But again, just have that level of depth up front. I think it truly wreaked havoc, and benefits were reaped across the board.
William just posted, Pat.
Give Fuller a big raise. Well, he's in line for one right now. There's no doubt about that.
It's not the post we would have gotten last year.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Or 2 years ago.
And listen, I was thinking
or
about
after Boston College.
I was thinking, that was a very good.
But hey, I think we would agree that Adam has done a hell of a job. And,
I remember sitting.
This year has been unbelievable.
The last 8 games they played phenomenal. Listen, I remember him saying we always thought that going into the season this defensive front was going to be pretty good. The front four.
Yeah.
We had questions at linebacker and in the secondary, and I think those questions were fair. Based on what we'd seen. We don't get to see him tackle in preseason, so we can only base it on what we'd seen when they do thud and whiz and all that. But I remember him saying, I think this defense can be one of the best in the conference or the best in the country. I can't remember exactly what his term was. I remember leaving that practice that day thinking, well, you know, I'm not sure he's right. And we get through the first 4 games and get through the Clemson game where Clemson played pretty good on offense. And then from then on, once they got into October, they have been rolling. How much better is this defense than you thought they would go, that you guys thought they were going to be coming into the season?
Well, look, I've said it before. I think Adam's a really smart guy. And I think the struggles maybe we've had early in his tenure here reflected the personnel that we had. You know, he wasn't going to put his guys in positions to really get burned, and you know, he had to build from the ground up. And he even said, I heard his press conference today. He even said, you know, we continue to work on things, and we're getting to the point in the season now where we're starting to, you know, these things that we've been working on that we're starting to perfect, we're now starting to unveil them and bring them in. We're starting to see blitzes and pressures and movements that early in the year we didn't see. And so, you know, the continual progress of this defense and the growth of all the personnel, the defensive line, the linebacker, all 3 levels, you know, you're seeing different combination coverages. You're seeing all kinds of different things. Where it's almost like, you know, it's a totally different defense this part of the year. And, you know, I think it's a testimony to him that, you know, based on the personnel he played the defense he had to play, and just kept the process going and work until they got better. And the results now are paying off, and especially with the substitution patterns, you know, subbing the defensive line. I remember there was one game where I don't think it was the defensive lineman didn't play more than 30 snaps. And I said it earlier. I said, you know what? They're betting this is going to be a 15-game season. Exactly. It's going to be a 15-game season, and we're going to preserve these guys for the late run. And now we're going to start to see the benefit of that. We saw it Saturday night. We're going to hope to see it, you know, this Saturday night and moving forward. So, you know, yeah, you got to give him a lot of credit. I do. He's a smart guy. I think he's managed his personnel well. I think he's built the scheme around his personnel well. And, you know, now he's got a full catalog of you know, plays and fronts and coverages that are at his disposal now, and pressures that, you know, we'll probably see something new this Saturday, you know.
Well, and Mark, to your point, he made a statement in the press conference, and you heard it, where they have a lot of blitzes and stunts that they haven't shown yet.
Right. Yeah.
That they had the luxury this year of kind of sitting on some things and using it only if they need it.
Right.
And so
Hey, I'm gonna tell you
And that's
another guy
smart.
who showed up big in this game and might have had his best game of the year was Fabian Lovett.
Yeah.
He showed up multiple times in this game, and boy, did they save. I mean, I know they've been obviously doing rep control with him all season, and boy, did it pay off. And especially as you get ready to go through this stretch run to add another playmaker, difference maker at the defensive tackle position. I mean,
That's the best he's looked all year.
Yeah,
right?
I thought, yeah.
Easily.
What a time for Akeem Dent and Fabian Lovett to start playing
Akeem
their
Dent.
best
Let's
football.
talk about Akeem Dent a minute.
Yeah.
His open field tackling was awesome. He had a couple one-on-one tackles on Johnson that where they all spilled it to him and he delivered on the tackle. And that blitz that he got the penalty called on. I mean, can you do it any better than that, right? I mean, everything you're taught to do, hit him with his chest, turned his head, I mean, I guess he should just pull the flag. I don't know. But missing him early in the season really showed. And since his return, he's playing his best ball. And, so you get him and Shaheem Brown, who's a playmaker. I think, our secondary is really looking good, in my opinion. Jerry and Jones looking good. Renardo Green looking good. Cypress just being Cypress, just not getting beat, not letting anything bad happen on his side of the field. So,
and he's got the wide side, which is fraught with peril.
Right. And don't forget that play he made, that hustle play he made. Was it Wake?
Yeah.
Chase the guy down? Yeah. So, I mean, look, like I said, earlier tonight, good defense, running game, don't turn the ball over. We'll win you games. I'll win you a lot of games. And that's the formula moving forward for us without Jordan Travis.
All right. So as we get ready to go into Louisville, just Jerry, we're all Florida State graduates, I think, on here, right? Was it sweeter to go undefeated in the swamp? I mean, to finish the regular season undefeated in the swamp and kick them out of a bowl game? Was it more enjoyable there than it would have been at home?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anybody who doesn't go to Gainesville is missing out on that sweet pleasure.
Well, especially, I don't know how many of you were on social media before the game, but particularly this game, some of the things that you were seeing coming out of Gainesville before the game made it a little bit extra sweet. And I'm not going to elaborate on it because it was genuinely disgusting and distasteful stuff.
You're referring to them hanging Travis in effigy and going to the extent of putting a cast on his leg.
I guess we're not going to gloss over
Jordan
it.
That'd put a smile on Jordan's face. I'm telling you.
Well, I think I don't know how true that is, but
you expect this of a rivalry, Nick.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, but that's like there are lines in the sand, Jerry, and then there's lines in the sand that you do on triple jump.
Reason goes out the window when these things happen, man.
Oh, I know. I understand.
If we had famous trees, they'd be up here poisoning them just like Harvey Updike did at Auburn. I mean, that's just what the hell happens in these things.
I know.
So Nick, if you were sitting with me behind the tromboners, when they were throwing ice.
The what?
I don't think I want to be sitting with you.
I don't want to be around any tromboners.
Yeah, I'm good.
Well, let me tell you what, the tuba section lost their minds, and they were going to go up into the second deck and drag some boys out. And it was like, Mike preaches, when they spit in your face, turn your cheek. So the tromboners right in front of me were trying to talk the tuba guys out of going up into the upper deck.
When you first said tromboners, I thought you were talking about sitting next to Tim Tebow.
But you get my point. It's just, that's an intense environment.
It is. And look, I know I've been to my fair share of rivalry games too, but I think let me put it to you this way. I think everything revolving around Jordan's injury and how that was used, it's kind of almost like a too soon moment, but as you all say, it doesn't matter in a rivalry setting, right? I think it was extra sweet as a graduate this time around.
I'll tell you what was sweet too. I think Ricky Pearsall needed like 70 yards to break 1,000.
Yeah, something like that.
Get it.
He did not get it.
And his grandma was on Facebook real upset about it or something.
Oh, really?
That. Yeah, I can't remember if it was his grandmother or his aunt or something, but it was buried beneath all the Fire Napier stuff that's going on over there. But
and I'm telling y'all, even if you don't want to go to the game and deal with it, you need to go to Gainesville to listen to their post-game radio show.
All right. So,
okay.
So
by the
sweet.
way, did you guys see the guy who does a show like that, like our post-game show, like Mark and I do? He's got his own YouTube channel. He literally starts crying during his broadcast. Mark, if we start crying, win or lose, we need to stop doing it.
Look, if I didn't cry after Jacksonville State, I'll never cry.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Look, another point I wanted to make on the defense too. We hit that kid a ton, and I said at the end of the game, we need to get Max Brown, James Blackman's therapist number. I mean, that kid was, he didn't want any part of it at the end.
I mean,
that last interception, he was like, you see, he threw that ball and went, screw it, I'm out of here.
We've seen that with Emory Williams from Miami. We've seen it with Harry Beeline from Duke. We saw it with the quarterback from Wake Forest. These guys all started getting happy feet and don't want anything to do with Florida State's pass rushers. No, I wouldn't want to try to run away from Jared Verse and Braden Fisk all night. Just throw the ball away. Let's move on.
Your effort is futile. You ain't running away.
So we're going to move on to Louisville here in a minute. But before we do, I wanted to go back to another critical play in that game. And that was, Nick, you mentioned that Coleman let a ball go over his head, right? And they downed it on the 6. If they kicked it over his head, the kid blasted it. It was like a 68-yard punt. And if he goes back and tries to field that, there's a very good chance we get an Ontario Wilson issue. Remember 2 years ago down there, we were in that ball game. And then they punted the ball over Ontario's head, and he tried to do an over-the-shoulder catch on a punt. And it turned into a disaster. And I thought, Papuchis today, Monday at the press conference, somebody asked him if he said anything to Coleman about that decision. And he said, no, I trust his judgment. And the thing is, you're better off, sometimes valor is, what do you call it?
Discretion's the better part of valor.
He thought that thing was going to go into the end zone, and maybe he didn't know exactly where he was on the field at the time. But I'd rather have the ball on the 6 and get a safety than a fumble at the 10 or a touchdown.
And let them score a touchdown. Yeah.
We made that mistake 2 years ago. It cost us the game. And I think that was a big play. Sometimes what doesn't happen is more important than what does happen.
Hey, by the way, we have been treated to some, and I know it's not the sexy part of the game, but between Alex Mastromano and some of the punters Florida State has seen this year, we have seen some excellent punters. I mean, it's been crazy. I don't think I can remember this happening before. All right, guys. So the ranking show has started. They're going through the back end of the 25 first. Clemson's still ranked. They moved up a spot to 23. Before they get to their predictions, where do you guys have Florida State showing up in this college football playoff ranking poll? Bob, I'll start with you.
I'm going to go 4.
Mark?
4.
Nick?
They'll be at 4, but I had them at 3.
Nick says 3. Jerry?
I'm going to have them at 4 this week. If you remember, I had them at 5 last week.
Yep.
But I do think the win over a rival. And I didn't see anything great over the weekend from
the Washington won by 3, Alabama won by a miracle, Georgia won by 8 over Georgia Tech, so they got taken into the fourth quarter. So the optics, all that bullshit that they were talking about pregame, Herb Street and Chris Fowler talking about the optics of Florida State's win all out the window because nobody else did anything other than Oregon and Texas as far as just literally dominating their and listen, Texas Tech is not a rivalry. I mean, they can try to sell it as a rivalry game if they want, but it's not. And then, of course, you had Oregon State get beat by Oregon, and their coach was halfway out the door up there in Corvallis. Is that where Oregon State is? Corvallis. Yeah. He's now sitting in East Lansing. But yeah, so I don't think it really mattered. Louisville dropped the spot to 14. I've got Florida State at 4-2. I moved them back in, Jerry, just like you did. So, all right. So here we go with the top 10.
Penn State.
Yep. Hey Jerry, when we get to the top, before we get to Louisville and to the playoff rankings, tell us we got some breaking news on Osceola and the Louisville game.
All right, so we got Osceola coverage at Charlotte this week. We'll have staff up there, but I'm going to stay behind because we have a new advertiser, Glory Days, and we're going to here in Tallahassee. We're going to have a game watching party for the ACC championship. And look to the Osceola for more details. But I just got a text from Mary over there at Glory Days, and we'll start for the SEC championship at 4:00, and we'll just. But what you need to do is email me, and let me know you want to come. My email address is jkutz@theosceola.com. Pat, can you throw it up there somehow?
I can.
All right. But look to the Osceola. You'll see a lot more coming out in our newsletter every morning and on the site. But Glory Days has been great. We did the Billy Sexton fundraiser there, and they're good people. They're Florida State people, and so we're going to try to support them. And so there'll be an advertiser with us this year, and we'll be doing some events there throughout the year, starting with this ACC championship game.
All right. So you got Penn State, Missouri at 9, Alabama at 8, Texas at 7. So far. So only Penn State moved up 1.
I'm surprised.
Who did Penn State?
So they played Michigan State. Here it is. If you want to come to the Osceola watch party, please RSVP Jerry at jkutz@theosceola.com. Is that correct, Jerry?
Yeah, but it's Kutz.
What did I say?
Kutz. That's all right.
Okay, all right.
But anyway, hey, in your RSVP to me, let me know if you want to get there at 4, or if you're going to just come for the Florida State game at 8, because I'm going to try to manage some seats for Mary.
All right. Well, Mark, it sounds like you could be doing first impression solo, buddy. If I'm going to be at Glory Days for 12 hours.
No, everybody tune in for Pat. And probably me too.
Well, right. Hey, as long as the ball signs off on me steering the ship
after 4 hours of
I'm good.
Glory Days.
Yeah, well, you're talking 8 hours.
I'm all right, officer. I'm all right.
I'll be Ubering.
We'll have
home.
Ubers.
I'm not officer drunk.
All right, here we go, boys. The top 6. Ohio State, number 6.
Nice. Wow.
11-1 Ohio State, number 6. I thought Alabama would move in front of them, to be honest with you.
I did too, Pat.
Or Texas. Maybe both, actually. But I guess they're saying they got there. I'm sure Michigan's going to be ranked number 1. Nah, Georgia's going to be ranked number 1.
No, I think Georgia's probably, yeah.
Yeah, so I think what they're saying is they might have the best loss out of those 6, 7, and 8 teams. Texas, Alabama, and Ohio State. I guess they're saying they have the best loss would be what I think Boo Corrigan's going to say when he meets with the media.
I would say that's accurate.
I'd like to see Michigan ranked number 1 and us number 4.
Oregon moves up to 5. I figured that was going to happen because they dismantled Oregon State. And Bo Nix is going to win the Heisman.
Over Daniels?
So that means we're in it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yay.
Woo.
So is it 4 or 3? Is Nick right at 3?
I would be shocked. I would be surprised I'd be surprised my own self.
I'd like to be I figure 4 is plenty good.
I mean, I've said it on the past 2 weeks for this show. I think Florida State's going to stay at, well, I did say that they were going to stay at 4 until Michigan, Ohio State played, but then
Florida State at number 4.
There you go.
Florida State.
There you go.
We were dead on it.
Well,
number 4.
most of us.
All but Nick. Nick was
Yep.
an optimist, which I like.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
yes, he is.
the rest of the world wouldn't see it like that. I mean, with the amount of talk about this stupid narrative of Florida State being left out, even if they are 13-0 conference championships, I see enough of that crap.
Nick, let me warn you: do not read Takeaway Tuesday.
I
Do not read Takeaway Tuesday because I go through a multitude of scenarios, and you are not going to like. Listen, I didn't say I think it's going to happen. I said there's some, as Jerry and I have said the other day at practice.
I'm in agreement with Pat. Anything.
Keep an open mind.
My whole thing is that even with all those scenarios being floated out, Florida State still had the largest margin of victory out of all the rivalry games that happened this weekend. The rest of the world isn't going to see it like that because they started down 12-0. But
Washington is number 3.
That in my mind would have been enough to move Florida State to number 3 over Washington. But I can absolutely understand why they can't move Florida State higher than 4.
Georgia 1. So right now, if things were to stay put for another week, but if we get come back here next Sunday night and the rankings are the same, Florida State goes to the Sugar Bowl to play Georgia. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. Yep.
All right. Well, there we go.
That'd be a tough ticket.
Yep. Florida State's had a good
Florida
history.
State fans will travel to there.
Yeah, that would be wild between Georgia and Florida State fans on Bourbon Street. That would be entertaining. I might have to try to sign up for that trip. Can I throw my name in the hat right now for the New Orleans trip?
I promise you, that'd be the best looking women of all the playoff games.
I skipped the last New Orleans trip, so I should be up on the pecking order. But all right, so we're where we thought we would be. We'll probably come back and get into. Well, we'll wait until next week to get into. We'll talk about all the possible scenarios after we know what happens this weekend. All right, so we got Louisville guys. We've been on here for about an hour. We can hit Louisville now if you guys want, or we can come back tomorrow night and hit it. If everyone wants to listen to Boo Corrigan, that's fine. But if we want to go move into Louisville, Mark, you want to move into Louisville?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I mean, look, we talked earlier about good football teams and bad football teams, and Louisville's won a lot of games, and they lost some inexplicable ones. The one to Pitt was a little bit inexplicable, and that's just them learning how to handle success. I think they had just beaten Notre Dame, and probably didn't handle the success real well. They're a team with a coach who's an offensive play caller, much like Mike, who's got a really good scheme. They've got a starting quarterback, which we haven't seen a starting quarterback in about 6 weeks, right?
Yeah,
that's true.
That's true.
Yeah,
we haven't seen. Go ahead.
And Jeff Brom is a very good quarterback coach and very good play caller.
Absolutely. So if I was going to pick one side of the ball to match up with, it'd be our defense right now. I mean, our stats are really gaudy, and that playing second string quarterback, third string quarterbacks has something to do with that. I mean, let's be honest, right? But all that being said, we do have a very good defensive line. They do like to run the ball. They have 2 really good running backs. They have a good scheme. They have good players. It's going to be a tough out.
Plummer's a threat to run.
And
he's not a statue. He's got 283 yards before sack yardage is taken off. He's right around 80 yards for the season, but he's not a statue. He's not as athletic as Tate, but he's not Tyler Van Dyke either. No.
In the way they run their defense, like I said, they remind me a lot of Miami on defense, right? So they're going to put a lot of guys in the box. They're going to run a lot of bear. They're going to do a lot of movement. And so, we need to be patient with the running game, both as fans and as coaches, because there may be some lost yard plays, 1 or 2 yard gains. But when you send a lot of people and you have those constricted, loaded fronts, you also can get a seam, make one miss and you're gone. And this is one thing I know Trey Benson can do. He can make a miss, and so can LT. right? And so can all the other guys. So, and that also means that there's opportunities in the outside because they're going to be, if they're going to play Keon and Johnny one-on-one, you know, and I expect Mike, you know, some of these blitzes to try to slip somebody out, you know, untouched, you know, free release some guys. So you know, I'm sure Michael has some stuff drawn up. So it's going to be incumbent on us being able to run the ball, hit some big plays running the ball. Tate having a sense of urgency against, you know, a heavily blitzing team, and obviously our defense, number one, stop the run and mitigate their big plays. And you know, we do that, I think we'll be okay.
Hey, by the way, I listened to Brahm's press conference the other day, and I think he must have got some advice from Lou Holtz. Yeah, because Lou Holtz was famous for making other teams sound like they were the 1970-something Pittsburgh Steelers before they played them. Brahm was selling that they would have to play a perfect ball game to be in it in the fourth quarter. So I don't like the way he's underselling. He's almost, you know, he wasn't as glowing about Florida State as some head coaches have been prior to the game, but he certainly thinks that Florida State's got some playmakers, and certainly, you know, you could tell he was a little bit disappointed in his team's performance against Kentucky, but I thought he was sandbagging a little bit on Sunday night. Did you guys get a chance to listen to him at all?
No, I haven't.
I didn't get I listened to some of it, but I kind of agreed with your summary of that. It always kind of makes me a little bit nervous when a team that is obviously pretty talented, the coach starts underselling them and starts really hammering home the underdog aspect to it. Look, this Louisville team is talented. I think they're going to give Florida State a big run for their money. They've got playmakers on the defensive line, especially at the edges, which makes me a little bit worried even though the Florida State offensive line has statistically this season anyway done better in pass pro. Some of the offensive line play is still probably, I would argue, apart from, you know, how well Tate's going to play, the offensive line play is probably the biggest question mark on the offense at this point. So
Mark, to your point there, Nick, and I'm going to ask Mark and Pat this question, but as I looked at their front four, they're light. They're very quick. They got, you know, long defensive ends that are 270-ish, but they have a nose tackle who's 295, 6'1", 295, quick. You know, he gets off the ball, but they're not real heavy up front. Would that affect your thinking about it? And their linebackers are 6'1", 230.
But they get you with numbers.
Yep.
They try to get you with numbers. And, you know, for me, what you need to do is you need to put that extra number in conflict. So that means Jaheim Bell, it means running backs, it means slot guys. I mean, if we go multiple tight ends, we got to, you know, blunt the edges, you know, stay away from, you know, Tate's got to be smart about which direction we're running the ball. I'm 90% sure that, you know, that when they give him a run, he's got to pick the side where we're leveraged better. You know, he's got to make the right decisions on those. If he's going to be doing some RPO stuff, put those guys in conflict. You know, put either Jaheim out there in the slot or Keon in the slot or Ja'Kai in the slot, and stick that ball in Trey's belly. And if that guy wants to start sniffing the run, pull it out and throw it to him. You know, take a few shots. You know, let our guys make plays. But yeah, what he doesn't need to do, especially against some of these bear fronts and these blitzes, these exotic blitzes, is sit back there and hold on the ball and take 3.5 seconds to throw the ball and make the full field reads. I don't think that's the best way for us to go. There'll be a time for that, but
both of their ends can get there quick.
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
Oh, the one end has 56 total pressures between sacks, quarterback hits, and quarterback hurries. The Jalot kid, Ashton Jalot, he's had a really good year. The other guy on the opposite end, he's had about probably roughly half the total pressure, so they do get upfield pretty good. Now, the weather could impact this game because the forecast right now in Charlotte is for heavy rain starting around kickoff and supposed to last most of the game. If, you know, obviously weather changes, you get a high pressure front, low pressure front, can blow it out of there. But right now, you go into the game, I've watched the Weather Channel a lot now, and we get a lot of hurricanes here, so I get a lot of practice. Plus, I figure I can't be any more wrong than they are. They're wrong half the time. So 60% of the time, it works all the time. But anyway, yeah. So that could be an impact. But to your point, Mark, where Louisville is not very good, they've given up 26 plays in the passing game of over 20 yards, which ranks 121st, and that number is probably going to go up with Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson lining up outside getting man coverage. And Jeff Brom talked about it in his press conference. There are going to be times where they are going to have to play man, and as he said, we've got to get home on those times that we do, and at least force a bad throw for an incompletion, as opposed to give up a huge play. So I think we are going to see Mike take some shots in this game because of that being the deficiency in their defense.
Well, it's like William says here, max protection is a thing in the toolbox that could be utilized, right? You chip it back going out, keep it tight, close, chip them going out. 3-man routes, 2-man routes, and if they're going to be playing man and blitzing, take a shot. And I like our chances of our guys winning.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that
and delivering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's something that I wanted to see a little bit more of in the Florida game, because they were playing a lot of single high safety. We knew that the cornerbacks for Florida in particular were a problem area. And I mean, Keon and Johnny had a one-on-one matchup quite a lot during the second half. And I really, wanted to see, Mike show a little bit more confidence in allowing him to take shots down the field. Now, granted, maybe that wasn't exactly the game for it, and I can understand why they continue to try and continue to stick with the run with Trey. But in another situation this weekend where that opportunity is going to be there, man coverage being played, and it comes down to it's going to come down to how fast the defensive ends get around the corner, and how many blitzers they're bringing, but also how fast Tate can get the ball out and get into those single and double reads, and give Johnny and Keon a chance to make a play. I think a key part of the Florida game was just don't turn the ball over, just because of the type of the game that it was. But I think against Louisville, if you're throwing the ball down the field, taking shots, and you have an arm punt or two, that might not be the worst thing in the world.
No, I agree with you, Jay.
I was just going to say, the thing with Tate, when we look at, sometimes he's slow on making a read or whatever. I think the better word is he's deliberate. He's a coach's son. He's been heavily coached over the years. He's been going to camp since he was about 6. And I think sometimes he gets paralysis by analysis, but that's okay if you avoid a turnover. And I think, Mark, I wanted to ask you this question. Pat, you played the game at the college level, both of you guys. I think when you're trying to earn a job, you're being deliberate. Once you have the job and you start to get the light goes on for you, you're willing to take more risks. You make quicker, What do you?
Yeah, it's the key this week are going to be the discussions they have with him this week, about not being afraid to make a mistake or to make a call and go with it. It may be the wrong call, but, a lot of times, great players still make great plays in a tough look, you know what I mean? And just go with it. I used to tell, I remember telling Clay Shiver, we always used to point the mic. And when you point the mic, what you're doing is you're setting the protections. I'm like, you can't be wrong. Just make a decision, because as long as everybody else is coordinated and makes the right call, it's going to be okay. Will the wrong guy come free if you point the wrong guy? Maybe, but you know what? As long as the quarterback knows that's who you pointed to, and he'll know that guy's unblocked. It just doesn't matter. Just go with the decision and make a decision. Go with it. And I know part of that too is they got to get the play in earlier, for Tate, and because I know Mike took full ownership of it in the press conference. I think somebody asked him about it. And that's what a good coach does. At the same time, he can get the play in maybe a little bit earlier, a little more decisive in what they want to do. Because what you don't want to do is if you're having Tate put us in the right play, whether it be a run, pass, or RPO or zone read or whatever it is, that you need to get him to the line so he can make the decision quicker.
Right.
Well, don't you think the game will slow down for him based on, a little bit, Mark, because of playing against Florida before he goes into this game?
Oh yeah, Charlotte will look. I mean, that atmosphere will look like cake compared to what he just went through. I mean, it'll be like a spring scrimmage. I mean, relatively speaking, I'm saying, it'll be loud, but it won't be like that.
By the way, somebody told me Florida State's expecting like 45,000 fans to be at this game. Have y'all heard that?
I haven't.
Have not.
Well, I haven't not heard that, but I'll check with that.
I didn't know if that was true or not, but I'd heard somebody sent me a text today. They heard there could be upwards of 45,000 Florida State fans in attendance, which will turn Charlotte garnet and gold.
I can tell you, we have a tremendous number of alumni that live in the ACC footprint. Carolina, Virginia, Washington, D.C. area, easy drive from Atlanta. So I would expect us to have a really big turnout.
Well, I bet Franz will be there early and ready to roll.
Jason Franz will be there. And Josh Szymanski's going to roll in.
Yeah.
We'll have a lot of Seminoles there.
Yep, it's going to be a fun game. I think the spreads come down about 4 points. Vegas is expecting a close game. Florida State's a 2.5-point favorite. It's going to be fun, guys. We'll have obviously a lot more coverage of the Louisville team with our scouting report on Thursday. We'll come out, our written scouting report. And, of course, we'll have our keys to victory on Friday. Obviously, you can go to the Osceola tonight and check out our practice report from Tuesday's practice. Also got some recruiting news, got a recruiting thread up. Nick's been in contact with some of the 2025 kids that are high priority targets for Florida State. And you can go to his recruiting roundup to see what they continue to say about Florida State's victory over Florida. And obviously, check back with us tomorrow for our Wednesday practice report. We'll have a couple of player features. We'll get Coach Norvell again post-practice, and we'll always have those comments up on the board. And, of course, remember that we will be having a party on Saturday at Glory Days on Capitol Circle Northeast. Please email Jerry at jkutz@theosceola.com, and he will RSVP and save a table for you for anyone that wants to join us. But we will be there early around 4 o'clock for the SEC championship game. If you are not an Osceola subscriber, but you do listen to our YouTube show, please go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com. Check us out. We do have some things that are in front of the paywall. We got some things that are behind the paywall, but we do think that you will enjoy our coverage of Florida State as it gets ready to head to the ACC championship game.
Pat, one more thing.
Yes, sir.
I want let people know we're featuring you and Nick and Fish on Thursday on recruiting.
That's right.
You want to know the inside scoop on where we're at right now on recruiting? On our message boards, we're going to do a live thread with Nick and Pat, who work real hard at this stuff, and Fish, who does it for a living.
Yeah, listen, Fish is going to have some updates on Jeremiah Smith, Xavier Mincy, a couple of the 2024 kids that Florida State is still involved with. And obviously they had a ton of prospects in town for the Miami game, which was, actually for the Miami and Duke game, pretty impressive list. So, obviously there was a decommitment last week with CJ Hurd decommitting from the class. They are still in it with a couple of 2024 guys. And then we will probably, and then we're going to move on to portal season starting next Monday. It's going to get crazy. I don't know how Mike and these other head coaches do it. They're getting ready for an ACC championship game, have a recruiting class that's getting ready to sign in about 4 weeks, high school kids, and then you're going to have kids jump in the portal. You already see it. I don't know if you guys get the portal alerts, but there's kids jumping in the portal every 15 minutes, it seems. Sign up,
or if you're at Colorado every 5.
Yeah, well, we'll have some fun with Dion next week. We'll have some fun with
hey, Mark. I mean, think about this. You and Pat both worked in high school development and recruiting, and when you were at South Carolina. But think about this. Mike's preparing for an ACC championship game. Got a chance to go to the college football playoff. He's got a huge recruiting class that he's already number 3 in the country.
That's right.
He needs to stay in contact with. There's no threat of losing him. but he's still got to stay in contact with them. He's got to add to that class. Maybe 10 or 12 guys they're still involved with there. And then the portal opens.
Yeah.
There isn't enough hours. I mean, remember back when
not only that, you got to recruit
your own
half
players.
Your team probably.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're right. He's having his one-on-one meetings with every player on the team to decide what their future is going to be. Are they
renegotiating terms?
Yeah.
It's a crazy world.
Now, listen. For a lot of our listeners, we got to be sure they understand this. Back when Mark played at Florida State and coached at Florida State under Coach Bowden, you only had 10 coaches on you had 10 coaches, right?
Had 10 coaches.
And that was pretty much it. You had some secretaries and some
two GAs,
one recruiting coordinator. That was it. Mike's got about 80 now. And they've got them split up into the portal, recruiting. He's got a staff that does recruiting. He does a staff that does the portal, only the portal.
Yep.
So but he's got to coordinate it all. I can't imagine Coach
and evaluate them all.
And evaluate.
Yeah.
And approve. But I just can't imagine Coach Bowden managing a staff of 80 people.
No, yeah. Chuck would have done that. Chuck would have loved it.
Well, listen, the one thing, December is not – I mean, it wasn't boring last year. They weren't going to be in the playoff last year. I mean, but all this going on and potentially being in the playoff, getting ready for a semifinal game, I mean, it's going to be nuts. I mean, the 30 days post ACC championship game. Listen, we think we're working on it right now. Osceola is working on a roster management feature where we talk about who's leaving, who may leave, and if so leaves, what does that open up a need through the portal? Can you replace that position through the high school ranks? I mean, there is a ton of stuff to think about, and I think you guys have kind of seen my rough draft of that article as we're going to work on it as a group, and the scenarios depending on who stays or leaves, and that's just the guys that could leave for the NFL, not for another college football program.
Yep.
I mean, roster management now is the number one thing that you got. I mean, talent acquisition and roster management are the two biggest things you got to handle. And
he's got a personnel division now.
Yeah,
it's become that for sure. And there are so many moving parts. And I mean, I don't know how the coaches do it because one thing the early signing period has done is it's backed up the calendar so much that your summers are gone because you're busy recruiting in the summers. Used to be the summer was you recruited, you had some camps, but you actually got some time off. There's none of that now.
I thought we were going to have to pay rent to Florida State for hanging outside the Moore Center all summer. I mean, it was just about every damn day.
Yeah, I mean, they get compensated really, really well, right? About 10 times more than I ever did, literally. But seriously, but they earn it.
That is true.
It is true. It's almost exactly 10 times more. But they earn it, every bit of it, because there's no time off.
But they don't get to hang out with us, Mark. They don't get to hang out with us after games. They don't get to hang out with us on Tuesday night. So
100%.
Look at you reap the benefits of getting out of coaching.
I really have. I don't regret it for a minute. I always tell people always ask me, do I miss it? I said, yeah, I miss it. I miss it in August. I miss it in August during 2 days, getting up to the season and all that. When I don't miss it is December and January.
Oh, when all the
guys getting fired,
next and
guys getting fired and recruiting. And I mean, look, I love college football, but that was one thing. Recruiting for me was just it was tough. I just had a hard time humbling myself to a 17-year-old kid. I just did. Some guys are naturals at it.
So you're saying you do not want to help us with our recruiting coverage?
No, I don't.
I mean, you could sit outside the Moore if you want to.
No,
I'll give you my spot on the worst benches known to mankind.
Hey, you should got to be like Bob and bring your own beach chair.
You know what? Christmas is around the corner.
But think about the great parts of recruiting coverage. You get to meet all these different kids and hear stories that are.
And there are some. Listen, you do get to meet some
pretty
great
good stories.
kids. Yeah.
And the parents are.
Oh,
I'm telling you, and like Mark, when you were recruiting at Florida State and when you were being recruited, I remember doing an interview with you and McGowan back then.
I'm sure Mark did most of the talking.
Yeah. Scrappy didn't say nothing. But you know, I don't know. The kids today just seem like the kids that Mike's bringing in, some quality people. We see a lot of these kids. Back in the day, it was always first generation college kids. Mm-hmm. And now we're meeting a lot of kids, and I don't know if this is across the country or just unique to Mike Norville and Florida State, but a lot of these kids are second generation, and their parents played college ball.
Yeah,
one or both of them, and man, they got their stuff together. I mean, they know.
No, I mean, look, there's always great stories. I got a million stories of kids in tough situations get a chance and make something of themselves and change their lives. That part doesn't get old. Of course, I love that part of it. Yeah. It's the grind of it is, you know,
being
the
away
grind
from
of it
your
is,
wife and
it's not real conducive to
quality of life.
It takes a special woman to be a coach's wife, no question. And Pat, your mother is a saint, no question.
Yeah, listen, I think she gets more nervous over my brother's games than she ever did my father's. So
that's probably true.
She's a coach's mother. And nothing changes. I mean, when I talked to her before the game, I mean, she is worried about every little thing. I mean, she'll call me on Thursday. How do you think we're going to do? You know, they do this well, they do that well. I mean, I don't think she actually knows. I just think she creates all these ghosts in her head by Saturday morning.
She wants to know everything's going to be okay with her baby.
Oh, yeah.
Shaney, too.
That's right.
So she would have been proud to see him after that game was over, and they had done their post-game locker room, and Shane was coming out to grab a box of food and get on the bus or whatever. And he was walking on air, man. You know, Mark, you remember those feelings after the win. He was levitating out of that locker room. He was very happy.
Because you know your life is going to be so much easier the next 8 months. Or miserable.
Have a job.
Well, right. and just think about his formative years from the time he was 8 to the time he was 18. He was going to Florida Field every other year, and then played against them in college. That was his first win in the Gainesville as a player or coach. So, and, he sent me that picture right away of him having that gator head over his head. He gets fired up about every win, but he still is a coach in some way. And I always get the report on what didn't go right.
Right.
What he'd like to
all
see.
The negative. Yeah. All the negative.
But I didn't get any of that. I didn't get any of that when I talked to him after this game. He didn't care.
And that's funny. And this may be a kind of a good place to wrap this up. That wasn't a perfect game.
No.
I mean, no. You could find a lot of things in that game. You know, a lot of coaching film is in that game. But I haven't heard one fan yet complain about it. Not one.
Nope.
And usually
totally different than any other game.
Any other game. Yep. Now, if we lose that game, that's it. It's a nightmare.
Right. Just listen to the Florida radio show, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Or the other call-in show. We're not crying yet, guys. We're not crying yet.
It's the same. It's the same at Clemson and South Carolina. It's the same at Florida State. I mean, I'm sure it's the same Alabama, Auburn, all of them. I mean, you're on the winning side. You don't pay for a meal, a round of golf, or a condo on the beach for a year, right?
Yep.
You lose that game. They're dog cussing. They're putting real estate signs in your yard. I mean, yeah, it's.
But that's what makes it great.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'm thinking about listeners to this show that are in real life. They have jobs and careers, and they work harder than even college coaches do to put food on their table. And that's one day that they can just let their emotion hang out. I mean, you can act like a child, you know, be an idiot. Put your heart right on the line. And you know, if we lose, all my Gator buddies are going to give me hell. They'll be signs and
relentless.
relentless.
I haven't heard from any of my Gator buddies this week.
No, you
No,
won't.
it's
either.
funny.
It's
Funny how that works.
You guys have Gator buddies?
Hey, listen, I
You not go to high school in this state?
I love all humans.
At
I
South
love all
Florida, I've
humans.
got Miami buddies. It's worse.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's tough
See,
sledding. man.
I don't have any
Yeah.
Miami buddies. That's where I draw the line.
Yeah.
That's where I draw the
Well,
line.
at any rate, it's just great to win a.
But buddies might not be the operative word. How about acquaintances?
Not
Yeah.
even that. Not even that.
All right.
All right, guys.
Here we
Go
go.
ahead, Jerry. Go ahead,
I'm
Jerry.
good. I'm good.
All right, yeah. So we got the watch party for the ACC championship game at Glory Days on Capitol Circle Northeast. Reach out to us. Let us know you want to come. We'll reserve a table for you. You can obviously. We'll probably start a thread. Jerry, do we want to start a thread for that?
Yeah, I'll start a thread.
Okay. And then obviously we'll be back on Thursday night with Fish, Nick, and myself on a live thread on the message board from 7 to 8 p.m. 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Thursday night. Fish, myself, Nick will be available to answer your questions, take your questions on the message board. So hopefully you'll join us on Thursday night. But certainly go to theosceola.com for updates on FSU's preparation for Louisville. And obviously, if you're not subscribing to our YouTube channel, please, before you log off tonight, subscribe to the Osceola, sign up for notifications, because we will have more. Obviously, Florida State's got several more games left, and we'll be back with First Impressions. We'll be back next Sunday night with a reaction show to the college football playoffs last rankings and find out ultimately where Florida State is headed after it plays Louisville on Saturday. And obviously, we believe if Florida State does go 13-0, we'll be talking about a playoff berth as opposed to a bowl berth. So please join us next Sunday night. We'll obviously promote the time on the site at theosceola.com. Jerry, Mark, Nick, appreciate y'all joining me.
Awesome. Thanks, Pat. Good job.
All right, Mark.
Oh, Knowles. Scalp him.
All right.